Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel Biology Made Easy. So today we're going to talk about cardiac cycle. In the previous lectures we studied as to how the SA node generates the electrical impulse which contributes to the atrial contraction is when delayed when it reaches the AV node. This delay is about 1/10 of the time, and after it reaches the AV node, the contraction of the ventricles begin. Okay, all this we have studied in the previous lectures in the conduction pathway. So today finally we're going to talk about cardiac cycle. Now what is cardiac cycle? Cardiac cycle means the sequential changes that occurs within the heart during from beginning of one heartbeat to the second one. So this is called as cardiac cycle. It's called a cycle because it keeps repeating itself after one heartbeat, goes to second one and then repeats itself. That's why it's called as cardiac cycle. So few facts that we need to know here. Normally in 1 minute the heartbeat beats about 72 times in 1 minute in a resting stage of man, and also in 1 minute approximately 5 liters of the blood is pumped because of the heart. Okay, now there are two main phases of the cardiac cycle, that is your systole and diastole. Systole means contraction and diastole means relaxation. So when the systole happens in the atrium, it's called as atrial systole or auricular systole. Similarly, atrial contraction is called as atrial diastole, and when this happens in the ventricles, it is called as ventricular systole and ventricular diastole. Okay, when the entire heart is in the resting stage, it's commonly referred to as joint diastole. So let's see what is the time frame and how the sequential events take what amount of time in occurring. Okay, so to discuss that, as I already told you, there are 72 beats per minute. Now that is, if you reverse the ratio, that is when you divide the 72 by 60, you get somewhere around 0.8 seconds, which clearly indicates one heartbeat takes about 0.8 seconds. Okay, so all these events that I spoke occur within this time frame of 0.8 seconds. Now to understand it better, the distribution, I'm drawing a pie chart here. You want to make a note, you can, because this will help you to remember what are the phases and how it happens. Okay, so I'm drawing a larger circle here. Now this circle can be referred as the events that will happen in the auricles. And let me use another color. This circle inside can be referred to the events that will happen in the ventricles. Okay, now let's divide this into 8 equal segments, because 0.8 seconds is the time taken for all these events to occur. Okay, now once you divide that into 8 equal segments, the auricular systole or atrial systole takes about 0.1 second, wherein the ventricular systole takes about 0.3 second. Okay, so let me shade this here. This is representing your auricular systole. This one here counts for your ventricular systole. So 0.3 seconds, that's why I've taken 3 segments of the pie chart. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So the remaining 0.7 seconds, your atrial diastole takes place. That means your auricles are resting. And in case of ventricles, for about 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, so 0.3 and 0.5 seconds of the ventricular diastole takes place, which means for 0.5 seconds your ventricles are in resting stage or relaxed stage. Now these 4 seconds or these 0.4 seconds, these 0.4 seconds are common for both the atriums and the ventricles, and that's why this stage is called as joint diastole, which counts about, if you see 0.8 minus 0.4, which is occupied in systole, is 0.4 seconds. So 0.4 seconds of the joint diastole refers that the entire heart is in the resting stage for about 0.4 seconds. Now moving forward, we will see what are the events that takes place and how is this heart sound produced during the cardiac cycle. Okay guys, so now we'll talk about the cardiac cycle and its phases and the events that are happening. Okay, so as you can see, I've already drawn the structure of heart here. In case you don't know the structure of heart, you can refer to my previous videos where I've taken the detailed anatomy of heart. You will find it on YouTube channel. Okay, now let's start with the cardiac cycle. As the name says guys, it's a cycle. So you have to imagine that the previous cycle has just finished. Okay, the heart, what happens, the previous cycle is just finished. The sinoatrial node is about to begin its next impulse. It's about to generate the next impulse that will be conducted throughout the heart. Okay, so what happens in this stage is the heart will usually be in diastasis, which is the rate at which the blood is flowing into the atrium. At the same rate, the blood will flow into the ventricles. So what happens in this stage? The valves, the AV valves are usually open. We will focus on the left side and understand by this. Okay, so the inflow rate of the oxygenated blood into the atrium is same as the inflow rate into the ventricles. So this stage is known as diastasis. Now it is at diastasis. Okay, this is the stage it is at. What will happen? The sinoatrial node, the SA node, also remember where is SA node present? I have taken another lecture on conduction system, which you can find it on my YouTube channel. So this SA node will generate the electrical impulse and will help the atrial muscle to contract. Once the atrial muscles contract, the entire blood filled in the atrium is pushed down to the ventricle. So this ensures the emptying of the atrial blood into the ventricles. Now once this blood is pushed down, the atrial pressure will reduce. Okay, another fact that we have to keep in mind, the blood will always flow from higher pressure towards the lower pressure. So now the atrial pressure, so here, okay, let me write it here. After the diastasis and after the atrial systole or the atrial contraction, the pressure of the atrium will go low, which will indeed begin the inflow of the blood from the lungs into the left atrium with the help of the pulmonary veins. Okay, so this will start refilling. This stage is usually atrial diastole. So atrial diastole ends about 0.7 seconds, and the atrial, when the atriums are in relaxed stage, the atriums are being refilled with the oxygenated blood. Okay, now this contributes to the entire filling of the ventricle. The entire ventricle is filled. The pressure of the ventricle will go high. Because of this higher pressure, what happens? The AV valves will shut down because we have to prevent the black flow. Always remember guys that I told you these valves and these guards are just to prevent the black flow of the blood. So these valves will shut down. The AV valves, that is your mitral valve or bicuspid, and your tricuspid wall will shut down. So this closure of the wall is going to produce the first heart sound, which is called as LUB. Okay, this closure of the AV wall will produce the first heart sound. Now once this closes, the pressure is still here increasing and the conduction has reached the Purkinje fibers and is contracting the muscles of the ventricles. So this contraction is going to result in opening of these semilunar valves. Okay, so these semilunar valves will open up. The blood will be flown into the pulmonary and aortic arches. Okay, these will be flown or pumped into the body. Okay, so once the blood is rapidly ejected out, what will happen? The pressure here will start reducing. Okay, now what will happen? Because the ventricle is now emptied, the pressure in the ventricles will start reducing. Okay, now again you have to imagine one thing, the pressure in the arches has gone high, here it is reducing. There is a possibility of again the backflow. To prevent that, the semilunar wall will shut down again. So they'll open up and they'll shut down. The shutting down of the semilunar valve is going to produce another heart sound, which is called as DUB, or it's called as DUB, B. So the first heart sound is LUB and it's DUB. The heart sounds produced by the opening, by the closure of the valves are LUB and DUB. Okay. Now, what we need to understand here, the pressures here have reduced. Now due to the reduced pressure, the opening of the mitral or the opening of the bicuspid valves will take place. So once this opens, there will be a rapid inflow from the atrium, because the atrial pressure is right now high and this is low. So it will induce the rapid inflow of the blood into the ventricle. Okay, so this will open up again and there will be a rapid inflow. Sooner the rate will become same and the stage will be known as diastasis, wherein the rate of the inflow into the atrium is similar to the into the ventricles. Okay, again once it reaches the diastasis, atrial systole will take place. Atrial systole will take place and the entire cycle will repeat itself. Okay, now the sound that is being produced is LUB and DUB. So I know everybody has heard this in Bollywood, like dil dhak dhak karne laga. However, it's not dhak dhak, it's LUB and DUB, and it's due to the closure of the valves, AV valves and the semilunar valves. So the first one is because of the AV and the second one is because of the semilunar. Now I'm going to write a flow chart for you to remember what are the events that occur during the auricle systole, auricle diastole, ventricular systole and ventricular diastole. Let me quickly draw a flow chart so that you can make a note of it. Okay guys, so as I told you that I will draw a flow chart and tell you the phases so that you understand it better. So the first thing I told you was the atrial contraction. It is called as atrial systole. Okay, what happens during the atrial systole? This muscles contract and the entire blood is filled in the ventricles. So 25% of the blood, 25% of the ventricular volume is filled up during atrial systole. Okay, now atrial diastole, post atrial systole, the atrial muscle starts relaxing. Okay, what happens in ventricular systole? Once the SA node electrical impulse reaches the ventricular musculature, the first thing that happens is isometric contraction. That is, your entire ventricles after filling up starts contracting, and due to this, this wall shuts down and produces the first heart sound. That happens during isometric contraction. Now this one opens up and there's a rapid ejection. Okay, that is, the blood starts flowing out of the ventricles into the arches. It's called period of ejection. Okay, then comes the protodiastole. Protodiastole is the stage where this pressure of the ventricle starts dropping in the blood stops flowing outside, rather the closure will happen in future. So the blood stops flowing outside because the pressure here is reduced. So the ventricle is about to relax, and that is why it is called as proto-diastole. Like the diastole is about to happen in this stage. Now what happens during the ventricular diastole? Isometric relaxation. The entire ventricle relaxes, leading to the closure of the semilunar valve. Okay, to prevent the blood flow, the semilunar valve will shut down, which will produce the next sound, which is DUB. Now once isometric relaxation is over, or this phase, the ventricles are relaxed, there will be a rapid inflow. This will open up, these valves, AV valves will open up, and there will be a rapid inflow of the atrial blood into the ventricles. Okay, now post that, once the rapid inflow starts taking place, there will be a stage where the entry of the blood from the pulmonary veins will be equal to the entry into the ventricles. This stage will be called as diastasis. Now post diastasis, what will happen? Atrial systole will take place. Okay, now what happens? As I told you, atrial systole fills up the 25% of the ventricular volume, and rapid inflow fills up 70% of the ventricular volume. Diastasis fills up 5% of the ventricular volume. So post these three stages, okay, post these three stages, look, so 1, 2 and 3. So rapid inflow, diastasis, atrial systole. Post this stage, ventricular systole will take place, which is very important for the ejection of the blood volume, or to produce the stroke. The blood is pumped out. Okay, so this is what we needed to know about the cardiac cycle. Now we shall discuss something about the volumes related to the cardiac cycle and the cardiac output. Okay, let's talk something about the volumes. As I said, okay, there is something called as EDV, or end diastolic volume. So at the end of the diastole, there is 120 milliliters of the blood filled in the ventricles, out of which 70 ml of the blood is reduced during the period of ejection, and it is called as stroke volume. Okay, what do we call it? Stroke volume. Post stroke volume, or post the systole, obviously after the diastole there is systole that occurs, and during the systole this 70 ml goes out. The remaining 50 ml is left out in the ventricle, which is your end systolic volume. Okay, we call it as end systolic volume. So out of these we can actually calculate something called as your ejection fraction. So what is the fraction that the ejection has taken place at, which is your stroke volume divided by your end diastolic volume. Okay, so which is here, your stroke volume is about 70 and your EDV is about 120. So it is 7 by 12, which indeed is around 60%. So your 60% of the blood is ejected out during the period of ejection. Now also, what is the cardiac output? Cardiac output refers to how your heart is ejecting the blood out, and what is the total output in 1 minute that it gives. Okay, in a normal healthy human heart, as I told, in a minute 5 liters of blood is ejected. Let's see how. So cardiac output is usually about 5 liters. As I mentioned, it is calculated as your stroke volume. Your stroke volume is multiplied by the heart rate. Okay, so which is your stroke volume here is 70 ml into 72 beats per minute, counts about 5040 ml, okay, per minute. Why per minute? Because this is 72 beats per minute. So this accounts about 5 liters per minute. This is your cardiac output of a normal human heart. Alright. So guys, this was all for today that we needed to know. We have understood the entire cardiac cycle in detail, and I hope it was easy for you to understand the cardiac cycle with the help of my video. And if you found that the biology has been made easy for you to understand, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel Biology Made Easy. Share it with your friends, like, share and comment. Also in the next video we are going to talk something about blood pressure and the disorders related to the blood pressure. Also, how do you read a cardiogram, or sorry, how do you read an electrocardiogram? Alright, so thank you for listening to me and giving your time. Please stay tuned until I come up with my next video.